Hi, this is Paige Howe with DNTV, doing a special report today. I wanted to talk to you about the new TLDs and early access period pricing versus renewal pricing. So Mike Birkins had a great post today on thedomains.com about his own personal experience with domain names that he had purchased last year with what he thought was a regular price for the TLD, and then he got his bill this year and it had given him this new premium pricing for the renewal fee. And so I wanted to go over, for those of you who maybe didn't partake of the new TLDs last year, haven't gone through the process, have seen a lot of prices and are confused about it, just how these TLDs were brought out and how some of the pricing was determined. So what's important to remember is we're going to talk about some of the pricing that happened on the launch, okay, where people would have paid premium prices. So this would have been the launch in either 2014 or 2015 for the 2-character domain names that just came out, or the release of the conflict names, the names that had collision list, where they weren't allowed to come out at the beginning, but now they are out. And so there's two components to why you would have paid more than a registration fee for a new top-level domain name, depending on the registrar. But I'm going to talk about the donuts names now, the names that RightSide ended up using EAP pricing on, and other places that have used what's called EAP pricing, meaning early access period. So when donuts would come and they would say, hey, .page just launched on January 1st, that would be the day that all the names were available. And rather than doing a land rush, you know, where you used to have to pay beforehand and maybe get in an auction and do different things, what they said is, we're going to make all the names available in the whole database today, January 1st, if that was the launch date, for a 24-hour period. And for that 24-hour period, rather than telling the registrars that every name had a different price, they just said, you know what, all the names are going to have one huge price. And using one major domain name, this is at name.com's pricing, that would have been $12,500 on the first day. Now that $12,500 was made up of a wholesale charge to name.com and then a markup. So we don't know what the wholesale charge would have been, but there's some component of that that's the wholesale charge to name.com. Just say it's $11,000. I have no idea if that's what it is. And then name.com would mark it up by $1,500 to get to $12,500. So if you see other registrars that may have that day one EAP fee at $13,000 or $11,600 or something like that, it's because they're working off a different markup. So what you have is you have an EAP on day one where the whole top level domain name is available, but you've got to pay this $12,500 price for every name. And I think that was one of the ways where they said, here's a way we can get by where the registrars just have to change one thing in their system, price of the domain name. Every name gets priced at $12,500. Whatever gets registered that day, they pay, in this case, $12,500. Now, 24 hours after the launch, which for me, Central Time in the US is usually 11 o'clock on a Wednesday, then you could pay $3,000. That would be the day 2 EAP price. So the top level domain name is open for registration. Anyone can get all the names that haven't been held back, but you're going to pay an extra $3,000 to get names during the day 2 EAP, which would start 24 hours and 1 minute after the TLD was launched and would go until 1 day, 23 hours, 59 minutes, and 59 seconds. Then it would roll over to the day 3 EAP price, which would be $1,250. So if the day 1 started on Wednesday, all the way until Thursday, again for me, US Central Time, would be 11 o'clock on Thursday would be $12,500, until 11 o'clock on Friday would be $3,000, until 11 o'clock on Saturday would be $1,250, until 11 o'clock on Sunday would be $650, and then you'd have 3 days where it would be $175. So we have day 1 EAP, day 2 EAP, day 3 EAP, day 4, and then you have days 5 through 7. So a lot of people had to decide if they wanted a name, like say .page came out, and you wanted im.page. You'd have to decide if you wanted to get it on the first day and pay $12.05, and if not, you'd wait it out and maybe get it on the second, third, fourth, or fifth day. So a lot of the ones that I bought were in this $12.50, $6.50, and $175 range, and I would sit there and buy it. So one of the ways you can tell what someone paid for a premium domain is if they bought it on the first day that the TLD was launched. If you look on the launch schedule and you see they bought it on day 1, you know they paid $12.05 for it, day 2, 3, 4, and 5. So this is the extra amount of money you paid to get the name during the first 6 or 7 days of registration. Then after that, there was no premium applied to registering the domain name. But it could be a premium name in terms of the renewals. So what the registries were allowed to do is they were allowed to have regular names, and say in a new TLD that was a $25 fee. And then what they did was they could develop classes or tiers of premium prices. In this case, I'm just going to call them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And they could say that tier 1 would be $50, tier 2 would be $80, tier 3 would be $220, tier 4 would be $440, and tier 5 would be $1,000 per year, each and every year for the registration. So this amount is due each and every year. The EAP amount that would have been paid to get the name up front was only due in the first year. So last year, if you would have been playing in the new TLD space and you would have bought the name on day 3 EAP, you would have paid $12.50. And if it was say it was a tier 4, $220 a year, you would have paid the $12.50 plus the $220, $14.70 to get it at that point, and then you'd pay $220 a year for each and every year after that. So if you come in now as a new buyer, what's important to you is that that domain name has an annual fee of $220 going forward. Now, if you move it to a new registrar, you're going to pay that new registrar's fee. So even though the buyer maybe paid $220 at his registrar, depending on your registrar relationship, you might pay more. Some of the registrars, what you can do is you can say, I want to transfer this name, and they'll show you what the transfer premium price is. Because remember, when you buy a transfer, you get an extra year of registration. So the registrars have to know whether these names are premium, so they know how much to charge you to move that name over to a new registrar, as well as have enough money to pay the registry for the premium renewal for the extra year that was added. Now, we think most of the registries and the registrars just got everything working last year. That was their big focus, okay? And things like transfers and conditionals and all kinds of other stuff was just left to let's fix it later. So what's important to know is if you're buying a name in the aftermarket, you want to transfer it to you, you're going to pay, if it's a premium renewal, you're going to pay that premium renewal and get a year added on. Now, the aftermarkets haven't always done a great job of saying when you see names for sale, whether it's a premium or whether it has a high premium renewal. And the seller and the exchange may take the position that in their terms and conditions it says the buyer should research every aspect of the domain name they're buying, and thus they should know whether it's a premium or not. Now, I've had to deal with this over the last 5 or 6 years with .tv names that for a while had premiums, for a while didn't have premiums, but I think the whole world is kind of getting exposed to this now. I think it's best practices for a seller to note as clearly as possible in the listing that it has a premium renewal. Or if they call a name a premium name in a new TLD, that term doesn't necessarily just mean it's a great name or it's a cool name or it's an awesome name. But I think it does denote a premium renewal fee. You'll want to find out if you're buying a great name that was either a one-word dictionary term, works perfectly with the TLD, or has high search volume for the TLD, or is very short, 1, 2, or 3 characters, that it may be a premium TLD. And what's going to be important for you buying that name in the resale market is what is the renewal fee going forward. Now, learning this EAP process will help you as we have some more rollouts coming. They've slowed down a little bit, they're not happening as fast. but it gives you an idea of the process that the buyers may have gone through last year to buy these names, and gets you thinking about the process to go forward for any new TLD launches. There's two components to buying up a premium domain name at the beginning. There's the EAP fee, if they would use the EAP system, and the high annual renewal. The EAP fee is due in the first year only. The high annual renewal is due in years going forward. Now, because I bought a lot of high premium annual renewal names last year, I tried to find out just what are the rules for whether those prices can change in the future. Mike Birkin's story is different. His registrar and registry didn't hook up correctly to charge him that renewal fee last year. There was a whole mess regarding, I think, the Minds and Machines names in terms of they were allowing pre-registrations before they decided which names are premium. So then when you bought the name based upon your pre-registration, you didn't know it was premium. Maybe that happened to Mike, maybe that didn't. But I think what's important to note is that the name was coming for him where they were billing him the high renewal name. His registrar, Hexanet, which does an excellent job of breaking out exactly what the premium price is and exactly what the renewal price is, in the first year had simply delivered their commitment to Mr. Birkins, to Mike, that said, hey, this is what you're going to pay, and they didn't feel that it was fair that he should be charged that high annual fee. But this year they've got to charge it because that's what they're getting charged for Minds and Machines. So that's a different story. What I wanted to know was, could the registries just change the price of a domain name in the future? Say a domain name, say drones hadn't been invented 5 years ago, and I bought drones.something, and all of a sudden they said, wow, drones is cool, we should have raised the price of that name. Now most of them, if you see them at a trade show or you see them at a conference, they'll be like, oh, we'd never do that to our customers, we'd never do that to our customers. But I don't know, you get them in a back room, you get them sitting there thinking, man, we should get more money for that name, what can they do? So that's where you got to read those agreements that you click on. When you sit there and you click, I agree to register this name, you're clicking to a whole bunch of new stuff. I even haven't read all the agreements on all the names. I spent a lot of time on them last year when I had some names pulled away from me that I thought I got. But here's my best approximation of what can happen and what may happen in the future, is that the registries can't necessarily change the price of one name, but they can change the price of an entire tier. Now they may use that to tell you, hey, don't worry about it, there's no way we'd ever change the price of a whole tier. But believe me, if the current registry operator, or in the future there could be a new registry operator that comes in and has no commitment to you from the initial registration and says we've got to raise prices to make this registry work, it's really in the registrant's best interest to raise these prices, because then we'll have enough money to keep the registry going. They can, I believe, raise the price of a whole tier. They have to do an application process, they have to give notice. Obviously, they can't go back charge you for something, but it may take place on the next anniversary. The second thing is, they say again, in rare cases, based upon, oh, we would never do it, but I think they can actually move names from different tiers to different tiers. And they may say, well, we can only move it from one tier to another. But they could take your name from a $50 tier to an $80 tier, or a $220 tier to a $400 tier. Now there is nothing out there that'll tell you that they can do this or that they can't do this. I haven't seen any exploration of this topic anywhere. So this is my best guess from the research I've done, is that registries do have the ability to change prices on the entire tier, and registries do have the ability to move a name from one tier to another. So that's what we're in for when you talk about premium pricing of new TLDs. How much the price was at the beginning may not be what it is every year, because the person may say, well, I paid $1,000 to get this name in EAP plus the $500 renewal. Well, they don't have to pay that $1,000 every year. The same point, when you're buying a name in the aftermarket, you should try to find out what that domain name's premium price is. One way is to go to your current registrar, put in a transfer request don't actually put in a transfer request, but start the process for a transfer request and see if in that process they'll charge you for the name, and that's them having access to the tiers and knowing whether that name is in a certain tier. So we hope this is helpful. We came from the board today, the Domain University board on DNTV, but this was kind of an educational session. My name's Paige Howe. Thanks for viewing us on DNTV.tv. Have a good day.